Most of us think of sleep as the safest time of day, a time when the body slows down, restores itself, and resets for tomorrow. But what if I told you that the hours between midnight and dawn, the time we cherish for healing, might actually be the most dangerous part of the day for your brain, especially if you're unaware of one critical habit that silently increases your stroke risk while you sleep? The truth is, our physiology changes dramatically when we fall asleep. Blood pressure drops, heart rate slows, our breathing becomes more rhythmic. All of this is natural and necessary, but there's a flip side when the body becomes less responsive to certain signals and the brain more vulnerable to fluctuations in oxygen, blood flow, and circulation. These shifts are normal until they're not. Now let's focus on one key internal factor that often gets overlooked: blood viscosity. In simple terms, this means how thick your blood is. And what affects this? Hydration. If you go to bed even mildly dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker, less fluid. Thick blood flows more sluggishly through vessels, which increases the chances of clot formation. When a clot travels to the brain or forms inside a cerebral artery, the result is a stroke. And many people don't realize that the risk is especially high during the early morning hours, between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., when blood pressure starts to rise naturally as the body prepares to wake. This alone should give us pause, but now add in a second hidden factor: oxygen deprivation, specifically the kind caused by a sleep breathing disorder known as obstructive sleep apnea. This condition causes the airway to partially or fully collapse during sleep, reducing oxygen flow to the brain and forcing your body to jolt itself awake repeatedly throughout the night. You might not even remember these awakenings, but they trigger a cascade of harmful events: spikes in blood pressure, surges of stress hormones, systemic inflammation, and most importantly, chronic damage to blood vessels. This environment-thickened blood and compromised oxygen is a perfect storm for stroke risk. Even something as simple as your sleep position can influence brain health. Sleeping flat on your back with your head too low can increase intracranial pressure and restrict drainage of blood from the brain. If your neck is flexed awkwardly or if there's compression around the carotid arteries, it can further impact cerebral blood flow. So, what is the one habit that raises your stroke risk while you sleep? It's not just one action, but rather the habit of ignoring nighttime physiological needs. Not hydrating before bed, not checking for sleep-disordered breathing, not optimizing your sleep posture, and not giving your body the preparation it needs for a safe, restorative night. And here's what's even more concerning. Most people who suffer a stroke during sleep never saw it coming. They didn't feel pain, they didn't experience warning signs, they just went to bed thinking everything was fine, only to wake up changed forever. Or in the worst cases, not wake up at all. The good news is that you can take control. A glass of water before bed, just enough to maintain hydration without interrupting sleep, can significantly reduce blood thickness. Monitoring your sleep, even informally by tracking snoring, daytime fatigue, or breathing interruptions, can clue you into airway problems before they become catastrophic. And small adjustments to your sleep position, like using a supportive pillow to slightly elevate your head, can optimize brain blood flow. Stroke prevention isn't just about what you do during the day, it's also about how you treat your body at night, because the hours you spend asleep could determine the decades you still have ahead. You owe it to your future self to protect those hours. Absolutely. And here's the expanded version of Keynote 2 in approximately 600 words, continuing in the neuroscience-informed, engaging style you prefer. When we talk about stroke prevention, hydration is rarely the first thing people mention, but it should be. Because one of the most overlooked yet significant risk factors for stroke, especially the kind that occurs while you sleep, is dehydration-induced blood thickening. Let's break this down. Your body is made up of nearly 60% water, and your blood relies on this hydration to maintain proper flow, consistency, and circulation. During the day, we're usually active, drinking water, moving, and supporting blood flow. But once we lie down at night, two critical things happen. First, our physical activity stops. Second, many people choose to restrict fluid intake before bed to avoid nighttime trips to the bathroom. It's understandable, but there's a cost. Going to bed even slightly dehydrated can change the viscosity or thickness of your blood. Thick blood doesn't flow easily. It moves more slowly through your vessels and is far more likely to form a clot. And here's the danger. When you're asleep, your blood pressure naturally dips, which already slows circulation. Combine that with thickened blood and a horizontal posture, and you have the perfect conditions for a clot to form or migrate. Now picture this clot traveling toward your brain. If it blocks a vessel, even for a few minutes, brain tissue is deprived of oxygen. That's a stroke. And the frightening part is, you might not feel anything as it begins. You might just be asleep, unaware that your brain is being damaged in silence. This is especially risky in people over the age of 50, those who take diuretics, or those who live in warm climates and lose water through perspiration. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to be clinically dehydrated to be at risk. A drop in body water as small as 1–2% is enough to impair circulation and cognitive performance. At night, this seemingly minor dehydration becomes much more serious because your brain is completely dependent on stable blood flow for deep sleep, memory consolidation, and repair. Additionally, as we age, our sensation of thirst decreases. That means older adults are more likely to be dehydrated and not realize it. They might not feel thirsty before bed, but their blood may already be too thick. This makes the simple act of drinking a small glass of water before bed not just healthy, it can be life-saving. Now let's address a common fear. Won't drinking water before bed make me wake up to use the bathroom? The key here is timing and moderation. You don't need a large bottle of water. Just 1/2 to 1 glass, taken about 30–60 minutes before sleep, is usually enough to restore hydration without disturbing your sleep cycle. If you're particularly sensitive to nighttime urination, reduce caffeine and alcohol intake in the late afternoon and evening, as both are diuretics. Another way to support nighttime hydration is through electrolyte balance. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium help regulate fluid distribution in and out of cells. Ensuring you have enough of these through your daily nutrition, or even a small pinch of sea salt in your water, can help your body retain hydration more effectively overnight. The real point here is this: something as small as hydration can dramatically influence something as devastating as stroke. And it's so easy to fix. Your brain depends on steady, unrestricted blood flow 24/7. Just because you're sleeping doesn't mean your brain is less active. It's doing some of its most important work. And you can't afford to let poor circulation sabotage that work. Taking care of your body while you sleep doesn't begin when your eyes close. It begins in the 60 minutes before you go to bed. That's the window where you can either set the stage for health or create silent risk. Choose wisely. Certainly. Here's the expanded version of Keynote 3 in approximately 600 words, continuing in the same science-based motivational style. One of the most underestimated threats to brain health during sleep is sleep apnea, a condition marked by interrupted breathing throughout the night. It's not always loud, it's not always dramatic. In fact, most people who suffer from it don't even know it's happening. They just wake up groggy, foggy, and maybe with a dry mouth or a dull headache. But behind those subtle symptoms lies a deeper, more serious threat: oxygen deprivation to the brain. To understand how dangerous this is, we need to look at what happens during a normal sleep cycle. During deep sleep, your brain undergoes critical housekeeping, clearing out metabolic waste, repairing neurons, reinforcing memory, and regulating hormones. All of these processes rely heavily on one thing: steady, uninterrupted oxygen flow. Your brain, though only 2% of your body weight, consumes about 20% of the body's oxygen, and it cannot store oxygen. That means it needs a constant supply. Now imagine this. You're lying in bed, and every few minutes your airway closes partially or completely. This causes a sharp drop in oxygen levels. Your brain panics and forces your body to partially wake up, gasping or shifting position to reopen the airway. You don't always remember these awakenings, but your nervous system does, and each one triggers a surge in stress hormones like cortisol, raises your heart rate, and spikes your blood pressure. Over time, these constant micro-awakenings cause inflammation in your blood vessels and damage to the inner lining of your arteries, known as the endothelium. The result? Narrower, stiffer arteries and a much higher risk of blood clots. If one of those clots forms or travels during sleep, it can block a blood vessel in the brain and cause a stroke. This is why undiagnosed sleep apnea is one of the leading risk factors for nighttime stroke. Now, many people assume sleep apnea is only a problem if you're overweight or a heavy snorer. That's a dangerous misconception. While those are risk factors, people of all shapes, sizes, and ages can suffer from sleep-disordered breathing. Even mild snoring, especially when accompanied by daytime fatigue, is a red flag. So is waking up frequently at night, waking up with a dry throat, or feeling like you never truly feel rested, even after 7 to 8 hours of sleep. What can you do about it? First, track your sleep. Apps, wearables, or even a concerned partner can provide clues about your breathing at night. Second, prioritize nasal breathing. Breathing through the nose filters, humidifies, and regulates airflow better than mouth breathing. If you find yourself breathing through your mouth at night, consider strategies to encourage nasal breathing like saline rinses, nasal strips, or even mouth taping under medical guidance. Another powerful tool is sleep positioning. Sleeping on your back increases the risk of airway collapse. Instead, sleeping on your side, especially your left side, can help keep the airway open and reduce episodes of oxygen drop. Elevating your head slightly with a supportive pillow can also reduce pressure on your airway and improve circulation to the brain. Finally, if symptoms persist, a sleep study is the gold standard. It can be done at home or in a lab, and it can identify the number and severity of breathing disruptions you're experiencing. From there, personalized treatments like CPAP machines, dental devices, or positional therapy can help restore proper oxygen flow. In short, you must protect your brain's access to oxygen while you sleep. Every breath matters, especially the ones you take when you're not aware of them. Don't let silent oxygen deprivation sabotage your health. Certainly. Here's the expanded version of Keynote 4 in approximately 600 words, written in the neuroscience-based, educational, and motivational tone you prefer. When we think of the brain, we think of thoughts, memories, emotions, and maybe even creativity. But underneath all of that is something far more basic and often overlooked: blood flow. Without a steady stream of oxygenated blood, neurons begin to malfunction within seconds and die within minutes. That's how fragile and demanding the human brain really is. Now imagine compromising that flow night after night without even realizing it. One factor that contributes to this silent compromise is something as simple and familiar as your sleep position. Most people never think twice about how they sleep. Back, side, stomach, it's mostly about comfort. But certain sleep positions may negatively affect blood flow to and from the brain, especially in those who are already at increased risk due to age, high blood pressure, or circulatory issues. Okay, let's begin with sleeping flat on your back. This position can contribute to several subtle yet serious problems. First, the tongue and soft tissues in the throat are more likely to fall backward in this position, especially in relaxed sleep, which can partially obstruct the airway. When the airway is narrowed, oxygen intake is reduced. Even if you don't have full-blown sleep apnea, this reduction in oxygen repeated across hours and nights can still place strain on your vascular system and deprive your brain of optimal oxygenation. Secondly, sleeping with the head too low or on an overly flat pillow may increase intracranial pressure, the pressure inside your skull. When intracranial pressure rises, cerebral blood flow may be restricted. Your brain essentially is working with a tighter space for circulation and waste clearance. Over time, this may affect the brain's ability to eliminate toxins like beta amyloid, linked to Alzheimer's, and could contribute to microvascular damage. On the flip side, sleeping on your stomach can compress the neck and restrict venous drainage from the brain. Veins are more passive than arteries. They don't pump blood, they drain it. That means even slight pressure on the neck, especially in awkward positions, can make it harder for deoxygenated blood to leave the brain, leading to congestion, increased pressure, and potential vascular stress. So what's the most brain-friendly sleep position? Research suggests that side sleeping, especially on the left side, may be the most protective. Not only does it help with spinal alignment, but it can also support better glymphatic drainage, your brain's nighttime cleaning system. During sleep, the glymphatic system clears away waste from the brain. Side sleeping appears to enhance this process, improving both circulation and the removal of potentially harmful metabolic byproducts. Side sleeping also reduces the chances of airway collapse, particularly if combined with slight head elevation. A contoured pillow that supports the neck while keeping the head slightly above heart level can optimize cerebral blood flow. If you snore or have mild sleep apnea, this position may help naturally reduce those disruptions. But beyond the position itself is awareness. Many people shift throughout the night without control. That's normal. The key is to begin the night with intentional positioning. Set your sleep environment, pillows, mattress, head elevation, so your body is naturally inclined to rest in a safer position. One final consideration, your neck posture. Avoid sleeping with your head turned too far to one side for prolonged periods. This can compress arteries and reduce blood flow to the brain. If you must sleep on your stomach or turn your head, try alternating sides nightly and using softer pillows to reduce compression. All of this matters more than we think. The way we position ourselves at night sets the stage for how well our brain functions the next day and over the years. Stroke risk doesn't begin with catastrophic events. It begins with small, repeated compromises in blood flow and oxygen delivery. By adjusting your sleep posture, you can start to eliminate one more silent threat while you sleep. Certainly. Here's the expanded version of Keynote 5 in approximately 600 words, continuing in the neuroscience-informed, impactful style you've requested. The most dangerous threats to our health aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're silent, sometimes they don't hurt, and often they go completely unnoticed until it's too late. Among these silent dangers is a surprisingly simple behavior that raises stroke risk during sleep: the habit of neglecting pre-sleep care for hydration and breathing. This may sound trivial, it may even seem unrelated to stroke at first, but let's break it down. When you go to sleep, your body undergoes a profound physiological shift. The nervous system transitions into a parasympathetic state. Your heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, breathing deepens. It's designed to be a time of restoration, but if your body enters this state unprepared, especially with thickened blood due to dehydration or compromised oxygen intake due to poor airway health, sleep becomes a time of risk rather than recovery. Let's start with hydration. You've heard this before. Drink water throughout the day. But it matters most in the hour before bed. Why? Because as you sleep, you're going hours without fluid intake. If your body is already even mildly dehydrated, your blood becomes more viscous. This reduced fluidity increases resistance in your blood vessels, slows circulation, and makes it easier for clots to form. Particularly dangerous if they travel to the brain. Combine this with the drop in physical movement and slower nighttime circulation, and your stroke risk subtly increases while you're unconscious. Now, combine that with the second issue, airway neglect. Millions of people suffer from sleep-disordered breathing and don't even know it. Whether it's full-blown obstructive sleep apnea or mild airway resistance syndrome, these disruptions reduce the amount of oxygen your brain receives during critical sleep cycles. And what many don't realize is that low oxygen levels can trigger a vasoconstrictive response, narrowing of the blood vessels, especially in the brain. When this occurs repeatedly, night after night, the risk of vascular damage, blood pressure spikes, and clot formation increases dramatically. What makes this worse is how normal these habits can feel. We brush our teeth, wash our face, and go to bed without water. We fall asleep on our backs, snore mildly, and ignore the fatigue we feel in the morning. None of it feels urgent. None of it feels life-threatening. And yet, these quiet, consistent oversights create the ideal conditions for a nighttime stroke. The good news is that this is a habit you can break, and it doesn't require anything extreme. Start with a simple pre-sleep hydration ritual. 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime, drink a small glass of water, about 100 to 200 mils. This gives your body time to absorb the fluid without forcing a 3 a.m. bathroom trip. For those who are especially sensitive to nighttime urination, consider sipping electrolyte-balanced water, which supports better fluid retention. Next, perform a nasal breathing check. Can you breathe comfortably through your nose with your mouth closed? If not, that's a signal to take action. Use nasal rinses, a humidifier, or even nasal strips to promote open airways. Nasal breathing not only filters and humidifies air, it promotes nitric oxide release, a natural vasodilator that helps keep blood vessels relaxed and improve circulation. Also consider head elevation. A slight incline, just a few inches, can improve both airway patency and cerebral blood flow. It reduces the chance of soft tissue collapse in the throat and may lower intracranial pressure, especially in older adults. What seems small now, like a glass of water or your breathing route, can have enormous consequences over time. Every night, your body either prepares to heal or sets the stage for risk. Stroke isn't just a daytime event. It's often the result of years of nightly neglect, unnoticed, until one night it becomes visible. Don't let that happen. Protect your brain before you sleep. Make pre-sleep care a habit. Your future self will thank you.